At the time of recording this, the Utah Jazz are on a 2-game win streak after just beating the Pistons and the Raptors on the road, by the way. And to be honest, both wins were impressive. Not just because the Utah Jazz can seemingly never win a game on the road, but the way they did it was impressive. And yes, I know the Pistons just tied for the longest losing streak in the history of the NBA. It was still impressive, considering not only how many players were out against the Pistons, but also who were out against the Pistons. The Jazz were short 8 players, of which being Lauri Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, and THT. And they are all arguably the most important players on this roster. And against the Raptors, they overcame a 17-point deficit and won for the first time this year. And yes, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the first time the Jazz came back from that big of a deficit and won all year long. The very first time. And considering the sample size, it's pretty safe to say that this team is just not usually capable of coming back from a deficit to win a game, especially on the road. But how are they doing it? What can we as a fan base point to and say, that's it, right there. That is how they are doing it. That is how they are winning. If I had to choose 2 areas of improvement with the Utah Jazz that will propel them forward in future games, those 2 areas would have to be passing and defense. Over the past 5 to 7 games, the Jazz went from being bottom 5 in defense to top 10 to 15, depending on how you filter it on NBA.com. And that's due in large part to zone defense, which the Jazz run most or second most in the league. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they run zone defense the most or second most in the entire NBA. Before the season started, I thought this roster would be great at zone defense. I mean, their length, height, athleticism, and for the most part, they're tall at almost every position except for point guard. And when Keontae George is out there, they're actually oversized at point guard too. And I've seen almost every kind of zone imaginable from this team. Box and ones, 2-3, 1-3-1, 3-2. You name the zone, the Jazz have probably tried it at least once. And the Jazz have had great success with the zone defense. But for some reason, their man-to-man defense, it sucks. I don't know why their man-to-man defense sucks so much, but it just sucks. But their zone defense has been pretty amazing so far. I've gone back and watched quite a few games, and almost every time the Jazz play man-to-man defense, the opponent scores. And it's usually in the paint or within 5 feet from the basket. But with zone defense, it usually results in a contested mid-range or an open above the break three-pointer. And it seems like those are the shots that they want their opponents to take. Before the Jazz started utilizing the zone, Walker Kessler's plus-minus was just awful. I think his average was -7.5. But since the zone, which is roughly the past 7 or so games, he's at a respectable plus 2.8. It's by far not the best plus minus in the NBA, but it does illustrate the importance of zone defense for Walker Kessler. The zone defense is allowing Walker Kessler to do what he does best, stay by the rim and block shots, and he's been doing a great job of that. Walker Kessler's blocks per game has also increased as a direct result of the zone defense. The first 14 games or so, because he was injured for roughly 7 games, I think, his average blocks per game went from 2.3 to an impressive 3.7. Granted, it's a much smaller sample size, but it again, it shows how much better Walker can be when he's able to be near the rim on defense. The other area of improvement for the Utah Jazz is their passing. Against the Knicks, the Jazz hadn't had an unassisted shot from like the 4-minute mark of the first quarter to the 4-minute mark of the third quarter. That is very impressive. Not only that, the Jazz had 31 assists on 40 made field goals. And we all saw the results of what happens when they pass in that game. They were able to beat the Knicks. And that too was an impressive win. Needless to say, the Jazz offense is much better when they pass the ball. Anybody who watches the Jazz will understand that the Jazz's bread and butter on offense is when they pass the ball without turning it over, obviously. And we've gone over this before. Turnovers have been a huge area of concern, and it has caused a lot of issues for the Utah Jazz. This last game against the Raptors just shows what happens when they don't pass. They go down by 16, or I think it was 17 at halftime, and they were down 13 points by the end of the third quarter. As soon as they started to play hard on defense and started to move the ball, and interestingly enough, by the way, their defense was actually man-to-man in the fourth quarter, and even more interesting, it actually worked. But when the Jazz started to do those two things, the Jazz go on, I think, something like it was like a 19-6 run, and eventually it was like a 25 or something, 27-9 run. I could be wrong, but I know it was at least a 19-6 run at some point, and went to roughly, I think, like 25-27-9 run. Outscoring the Raptors 71-48 in the second half and winning 126-119. And again, that was the first time the Utah Jazz have ever come back from that large of a deficit and won. And again, that is a direct result of passing the ball and just playing hard defense. It wasn't zone defense. It was just toughed out man-to-man defense, but I'll take it. A win's a win. Now, in fairness to the Raptors, the fourth quarter surge by the Jazz could have been the result of the Raptors being on the tail end of a back-to-back, and they simply ran out of gas in the fourth quarter. However, in fairness to the Jazz, they had played 4 games in 6 days and just got done playing their back-to-back 2 days prior to the Raptors game. So the Utah Jazz are definitely showing signs that they are moving in the right direction, but how will they look against the top-tier teams in the NBA? Can they compete with those teams if they continue to pass and improve their defense? Time will tell if they'll be able to do that, but as of right now, they have a couple of very winnable games on their schedule, and they have to capitalize on those games if they have any hope of making the play-in. Well, that's going to do it for this video. If you like the content, found it useful or entertaining, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. It really helps me out. If you didn't like it, please let me know what you didn't like or how it can be improved. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And no matter what happens, win, lose, or draw, good, bad, or ugly, we'll react to it here on React to NBA. Thanks for watching.